On the precipice of war, in a world where city skies echo with shrieking sirens and civilians flee for cover, one fact emerges supreme from the mayhem. The clock has started ticking. Israeli skies are afire with the blaze of revenge, and the streets of Iran are void of sound with a national blackout, shrouded in fear, solitude, and the shadow of destruction. As U.S. warships move closer to the very center of the Middle East, and Israeli fighter jets scream overhead, President Trump enters the maelstrom, issuing what he describes as the ultimate ultimatum, an ultimatum drenched in consequences. In backrooms, war rooms hum with strategy, red-drenched maps, and global leaders discuss endgames. Trump addresses Netanyahu as a wartime president, while missiles streak across the sky like expiring stars, and civilians plead for fuel, for sustenance, for hope. The Strait of Hormuz quakes under threat of shutdown as oil markets shake and the international economy grasps its chest in pain. Within Iran, mothers hold babies within basements, artists refuse to leave and die in silence, and gas queues become front lines. This is not diplomacy, this is the last act. Lindsey Graham warns his party, you either stop Iran's nuclear program or you accept a nuclear Iran. But what do we do when diplomacy breaks down and force is the only language remaining? With internet blackouts, strangling free speech, missiles landing on commercial corridors, and global powers taking sides, one misstep could ignite war not only between nations, but on continents. Trump, unhesitant, declares that he's been telling it for 20 years. Iran will not and cannot have a nuclear weapon. And while he urges Netanyahu to keep going, the globe gasps in anticipation, moving ever closer to a point of no return. On the streets, the tales are heartbreaking. Families divided by fear, highways clogged with desperate hearts, and fathers leaving behind loved ones with nothing but pride and destitution. And yet, even as Israel bombs strategic infrastructure and Iran retaliates with fury, the true cost is human. Millions wedged between peace and pride, diplomacy and destruction. This isn't breaking news. This is history in the making, real time. As 3 U.S. aircraft carriers form a fleet off the Mediterranean coast and back channels hum with 11th-hour pleas, one question can be asked. Are we witnessing the dawn of peace or the ignition of an international conflagration? Because when the lights go out, when leaders speak in ultimatums, and when hope is buried beneath rubble, you know we've crossed a threshold. This is no longer about politics. This is survival. This is strategy under fire. This is global order on the brink. And as Trump doubles down, as Tehran stands firm, and as Jerusalem prepares for impact, the question is no longer will there be war, but how much time we have left before it's too late. Sirens ring out across Israel's cities, piercing the stillness of morning. For the 6th time in a row, missiles fall, each a message, a reply, a threat. Iran strikes again. This time, the fire erupts in central Israel. A missile hits with brutal precision, igniting cars, consuming the street in flames. In the smoke and chaos, one name surfaces: Marin Air Base. Iran's Fars news agency claims it was the target, a strategic military site, northern Israel, a warning shot with meaning. Since Friday, Israel has launched deadly attacks deep into Iran, striking nuclear sites, military compounds, and more. The price, a minimum of 240 Iranian lives. The response? A minimum of 24 Israeli lives lost. The casualties mount, but not everything makes it to the surface. Inside Israel, military censorship shrouds the entire story. Sensitive sites, classified injuries, concealed losses. What can be uttered is strictly regulated. But on the other side of official quietude, videos, photographs, and satellite imagery have their say. Saturday, missiles screech towards Tel Aviv. Only 300 meters from the Ministry of Defense, bombs illuminate the sky. Israel's Pentagon, the Kiryat, is rattled. One of the most secure locations in the country, and it was almost breached. Another missile crashes into Rehovot, hitting the Weizmann Institute of Science, renowned for its research, renowned for its connections to the Israeli military. Another deliberate punch. Tel Aviv's outskirts are not left untouched. In Ramat Gan, towers collapse. Families run away. 9 buildings reduced to rubble. Evacuations are made. The skyline altered in seconds. Petah Tikva comes next. Residential neighborhoods, shopping avenues, burned and broken. In Bnei Brak, a religious academy reduced to rubble. What was once a school is now quiet. But the worst yet to come in Bat Yam. Destruction on an unimaginable scale. 9 dead confirmed. 200 hurt. Emergency responders swarm the area, but the destruction is profound, extensive, merciless. Rishon LeZion is next. Houses leveled, streets rendered unrecognizable. Haifa in the north come, under attack. The Bazan petrochemical plant, the biggest oil refinery in Israel, is hit. It ceases operations in an instant. Neve Sha'anan suffers another blow. Apartment buildings, broken glass, flames in the streets. In the town of Tamra, Palestinian, disaster again unfolds. A single missile, a single house, 4 women of the same family, dead. No bomb shelters, no protection, only loss. And far beyond the borders, chaos spreads. In Jerusalem, the U.S. Embassy closes its doors. American citizens wait in fear. Evacuation plans are unveiled. Flights, cruise ships, anything to flee. Ambassador Mike Huckabee confirms it. The U.S. is moving to get its people out, quickly. But there's no clear date, no clear route, only urgency. The Smart Traveler enrollment program is a lifeline. Those who have registered wait for a call that might bring safety or further delay. The U.S. State Department is silent. No confirmation, no details, only assurance. We're monitoring, we're working, we care. But with the missiles dropping, assurances seem far away, and the sirens continue screaming. In Tehran, the terror spreads quicker than the flames. As evacuation alerts ring out across the capital, panic establishes itself. 10 million individuals, families, elders, youth, all attempting to escape simultaneously. Escape is not that easy, however. Highways clog, gas pumps tap out, fists fly. One of the major roads out of the city is hit by a missile, an Israeli attack, one that obliges families to retreat. The road to safety is an open door with no escape. Some reach the borders, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Iraq. But most, too many, are stuck within a city waiting for the worst to happen. One woman, age 45, a mother of 2, stood next to her car, her big dog standing at her side, determined what to do next. She said they tried to get away, but by the time they arrived at the gas station, it was mayhem. No gasoline, fights erupting, individuals fighting over a few liters of despair. A 67-year-old man could have left. He had enough fuel, but he stayed. No paycheck, no money, no future in a strange city without food, shelter, or certainty. He made a choice: stay with a roof over his head and wait. Others made their stand out of resolve. "I'd rather die in my own home," said one woman from central Tehran, her voice calm but resolute. "Better that than be homeless, running with no end in sight." One artist, surrounded by her artwork and memories, spoke those words. "There are places I could go," she said softly, "but right now, I just want to stay." Meanwhile, tensions with the West erupt online. On social media, Iran's United Nations mission struck back at President Donald Trump. His words, referring to Iran's supreme leader as an easy target, ignited diplomatic flame. "The only thing lower than his lies is his cowardly threat," the Iranian mission tweeted. They made their point. Iran will not yield. Not under pressure, not under threat, not under bombs. No peace under duress, they said. No talks with warmongers holding on to power. In Washington, Trump upped the ante. The ultimate ultimatum, he labeled it, hinting at potential U.S. military action. A third carrier is already in transit. The USS Ford Carrier Strike Group, gunned, colossal, a war city on the water, heads for Europe. But its real destination? The Eastern Mediterranean, near Israel, near Iran. A second carrier awaits its arrival. The USS Carl Vinson can be next in line, to be replaced or augmented. These are not warships of peace. These are messages, strength, Reach, pressure. Every carrier delivers dozens of strike-capable planes, accompanied by warships poised to intercept attacks from the sea, air, or underwater. It is not an expeditionary force. It is a threat. And as these floating fortresses creep closer, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham makes no qualm. Having spoken to Trump, he says the objective is evident. Iran cannot, will not possess a nuclear weapon. The exchange of words becomes cacophonous. The threat of actual war draws near. Senator Lindsey Graham does not sugarcoat things. Stolidly standing in defense of Israel, he labels their attacks on Iran an amazing job. Accurate, potent, relentless. Even he concedes, though, there is one Iranian plant that Israel cannot attack alone. They'll need our assistance, he contends. A whisper, a warning, a door ajar for greater U.S. intervention. And as the world looks on, Graham tacks on one more ominous remark. I never felt better. The end of the Iran nuclear program is very close, and the world will be better off for it. But not all of the senator's colleagues share his confidence. Inside his own party, doubts are being raised. Some Republicans worry that attacking Iran will start a much broader war, one that drags America too deeply into it. But Graham is adamant. You either want to eliminate their nuclear program, or you don't. He thinks diplomacy has not worked, that only the use of force is left. If you don't get that Iran with a nuclear weapon is stuck, the terror is legitimate, but not everyone can or will flee. A 45-year-old mother of two reports to news, I didn't know where to go. We have a big dog. We tried to pump our car up with gas, but there was none there. She saw panic firsthand. People fought physically about a couple of liters of fuel, she explains. A 67-year-old man explains his unobtrusive rationale for remaining. He possessed the fuel, but not cash. If they haven't paid us yet, he asks, how long are we going to last in a different city? 1 night? 2? He remains, because there at least he has a roof. Other people opt for home rather than hope. I'd rather die in my own house, a 40-year-old woman says, than be homeless for who knows how long. Another, an artist, cuts to the chase. There are places I could go, but for the moment, I just wish to remain. Back on the world stage, Iran sends a message of defiance. It is not from the president, but from Iran's United Nations mission. Iran will not negotiate under coercion, the message reads. They call Trump out specifically. The only thing more reprehensible than his falsehoods, as they say, is his cowardly threat to take out our supreme leader. The Post cites Trump's recent Truth Social comments, where he referred to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei as an easy target. But Iran remains unimpressed. We will not accept peace under coercion, the statement reads, and certainly not with a has-been warmonger hanging on by relevance. Their last line is as cutting as any missile. Iran shall respond to every threat with a threat of reprisal and to every action with countermeasures. Iran's message to the world is clear as a bell. Iran does not negotiate under duress. Their release reads, shall not accept peace under compulsion, and certainly not with a warmed-over warmonger desperate to stay in the game. They threaten, Iran shall answer every threat with a threat, and every measure with countermeasures. And yet, on the other side of the globe, Trump doubles down. He declares he's presented Iran with the ultimate ultimatum. No details, no specifics, just a threat, and the threat of military action. In the meantime, the U.S. military is making its own low-key preparations. The USS Ford Carrier Strike Group is now ready to deploy. Its destination, Europe, in the vicinity of the Middle East. That will bring it to 3 U.S. aircraft carriers in close proximity to the Israel-Iran confrontation. Although the Ford's deployment has been long planned, military officials report that its itinerary is now under reevaluation, likely shifting into the eastern Mediterranean Sea. And it won't go alone. Another carrier is already on its way to the region, prepared to join or replace the USS Carl Vinson. These warships are more than steel and firepower. They're floating fortresses. They project power. They carry dozens of fighter jets, missiles, drones, and interceptors. And each one is accompanied by warships, prepared to defend against attack from air, sea, or below the surface. Back home, tensions build in the U.S. government. Senator Lindsey Graham, having spoken to Trump, wastes no time in declaring his position. Trump has been very steady, he says. He's determined to make sure Iran doesn't acquire a nuclear weapon. Graham is complimentary of Israel's recent military strikes. An amazing job, he says, but he acknowledges there's one target too deep for Israel to get on its own. It would be hard to get without our help. When asked how far the U.S. is prepared to go, Graham blinks not at all. You either want to eliminate their nuclear program or you don't, he says. And if you don't, and diplomacy fails, you use force. He refers to Iran as the biggest danger in the world and cautions his Republican colleagues, if you don't understand this is a religious Nazi regime, you're not listening. For Graham, this is a moment when there cannot be hesitation. The president has to make hard decisions in real time, he says. And if you're sitting in the bleachers and you're uninformed, it's kind of a dangerous moment. As missiles fly and airstrikes echo across the skies of the Middle East, the true cost of this conflict is felt most deeply by the civilians. From Tel Aviv to Tehran, families scramble for shelter. Sirens blare. Panic erupts. Clarissa Ward, News Senior International Correspondent, shares the shocking scenes that break out in Israel the instant sirens sound. And Nick Payton Walsh, International Security Editor, gets to the center of the row, Iran's nuclear aspirations. But meanwhile in Washington, politics seethes beneath the surface. President Donald Trump, on the south lawn of the White House, acknowledges what many suspect already. I may have some people that are a little bit unhappy now, but I have people that are very happy. And I have individuals outside the base who can't believe this is taking place. They're overjoyed. He's riding in on divided loyalties. Greatest threat in the world. Then you're missing everything. To him, this regime isn't merely dangerous, it's extreme, fanatical. A religious Nazi regime, he calls it. Just listen to what they say. The choices, he says, are no longer political. They are existential. The president must act, not tomorrow, not next week, but in real time. And if you're sitting in the bleachers, uninformed, he warns, this is a dangerous moment. Meanwhile, as leaders speak of missiles and diplomacy, ordinary people struggle to survive. Across Iran and Israel, families scramble for shelter. Panic rises with every siren. In bunkers, in stairwells, in cars on highways turned battlegrounds. On News's One Thing podcast, voices from the front lines paint the picture. Clarissa Ward reports from Israel. The sirens sound. The air trembles. Families scramble for shelter. Nick Payton Walsh describes the profound gulf over Iran's nuclear aspiration. Fear, politics, power, and where the world is now headed, one step away from the abyss. Even President Trump admits the schism in his base. Not everyone among his followers supports military action. Some worry about the price tag, the fallout, the unknown. But as the bombs drop, that argument could soon be moot. The world is burning, and decisions are being made in the moment. President Trump stands at the epicenter of the hurricane. I might have some folks that are a little bit displeased now, he says, his tone unwavering, but I have some folks that are very pleased. And then there are people beyond my base. They can't believe this is occurring. They're so happy. Inside his own party, though, the lines are drawn. Trump is under pressure, not only from foreign leaders, but from within the GOP itself. Always some Republicans wish for caution. Others demand action. Congressman Tim Burchett is one of the voices that call for caution. He talks bluntly. We don't need another endless war in the Middle East, he cautions. I want very little U.S. involvement. But Trump's mind is made up on one point. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, he declares. I'm not looking long-term, not short-term. I've been saying that for 20 years. The stakes are rising, and so are the threats. Standing in front of reporters, Trump says it plainly. I've given Iran the ultimate ultimatum. He repeats it, confirms it. You could say so, the ultimate ultimatum. But what does that mean? What are the conditions, the demands? He doesn't say. Instead, Trump shifts focus to Israel, his closest ally in the region. I speak to Prime Minister Netanyahu every day, he tells the press. I said, keep going. He refers to Netanyahu as a good man, a wartime president, a leader who is unfairly treated by his own people. I haven't given him any new support, Trump asserts. So far, he's done a good job. What he's going through, it's nonsense. But it's not just words that are being sent from Washington. Behind the scenes, the U.S. readies itself for the worst. As Jerusalem is under siege, the U.S. Embassy closes its doors, shut down until at least Friday, and American citizens, they're being urged to depart. A warning is issued by Ambassador Mike Huckabee. Urgent warning. Americans who need to depart Israel, the U.S. is arranging for evacuation flights and cruise ship departures. The post goes viral, first from his personal Twitter account, then by official embassy social media channels. It's no longer words, it's action, a turn, a sign that something larger is on the horizon. The Jerusalem embassy, still silent. Flights are being arranged, cruise ships getting ready to leave. As war proliferates, the world watches. Some flee, some wait, others are making their next move. But one thing is for sure, the ultimatum has been given, and the clock is ticking. In the midst of chaos, the U.S. persists in its subtle drive for order. Ambassador Mike Huckabee addresses again, this time a warning to all Americans who remain in Israel. If you want to leave, he says, you must register for the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, STEP. That's the only way to receive real-time updates. That's the only lifeline for those held in a war zone. Already, however, nobody knows precisely when the evacuations will start. The State Department is mum. No timeline, no flight scheduled, just one announcement from spokesperson Tammy Bruce. Our commitment, she says, is to the safety and security of Americans across the globe. No additional information, no guarantees, only assurance that a 24/7 task force has been deployed, working in the background as tensions mount. Even as it happens, on the other side of the border in Tehran, terror has set the masses into panic. Tehran, a metropolis of 10 million, is attempting to evacuate. But how do you evacuate a whole city in a matter of a few days? Gas runs out. Traffic comes to a standstill. Chaos reigns. Roads out of the city are clogged. Then, the unimaginable. A primary avenue of escape is hit by Israeli missiles. Families are having to turn around. Within his own party, some Republicans are urging caution against further military entanglement. GOP Representative Tim Burchett is direct. We don't need another endless war in the Middle East. But Trump is not wavering. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, he declares emphatically. I'm not thinking long-term or short-term. I've been telling you that for 20 years. And then, the scariest statement yet. You might say it is the ultimate ultimatum. Asked whether he issued one to Iran, Trump responds with a smirk. Maybe you might call it the ultimate ultimatum, right? No details, no explanation, just a pending threat. Aside from that, Trump announces his constant dialogue with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I said, keep going, Trump informs journalists. I speak to him daily, he continues. He's a fine fellow, doing a great deal. Trump even comes to Netanyahu's defense against domestic critics. He's been treated very unfairly by his nation. He's a war president, Trump goes on, and he's having to go through this garbage. It's crazy. So where does it all end up? With diplomacy at an impasse and military forces closing in, with allies being urged to push ahead, and with ultimatums suspended in midair, the region is on the verge, and the next move might shift everything. President Trump's most recent known phone call with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was only yesterday. The world waits as the two leaders, tied by common strategic objectives, spend each day discussing the likelihood of greater U.S. intervention in Israel's war against Iran. So far, he's done a good job, Trump said, when asked by reporters if he had committed further assistance. He's been treated very unjustly by his country. He's a wartime president undergoing nonsense. It's absurd. But while the leaders talk strategy, escalation, and unity, Iran descends into the dark. On Wednesday evening, the country was struck by a near-comprehensive internet blackout, a digital quiet that rolled in through its cities like a tide. NetBlocks, a diligent internet monitor, validated the troubling report. Live network data show Iran is now in the midst of a near-total national internet blackout. This was not an isolated glitch. It arrived in conjunction with military buildups, probably intended to isolate the outside world and its own citizens from viewing what follows. Survivalist news outlets like IRNA and Fairs News went silent. Facts disappeared. Censorship in the guise of silence. Inside, meanwhile, at the United Nations Summit on Maritime Security, charges were lobbed like missiles. Iranian authorities blamed Israel for expanding its strikes to vital energy infrastructure, petrochemical and gas facilities in Asaluya, a strategic coastal area on the Persian Gulf. Iran warned such actions directly threaten international maritime security and the world energy supply chain. If the international community does not take immediate and concrete actions, the risk of escalation at sea becomes imminent. A shiver-inducing threat came next. Iran reminded the world of its ability to close down the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow body of water through which close to one-third of the world's oil supply flows. Even the threat of closure caused commercial shippers to scramble. Maritime agencies raised their alarms, warning ships to steer clear of Iranian waters. Oil prices started to quake. A blackout, a blockade, a battlefield on the water. The dominoes are in line, and all it takes is one last shove.